The auctioneer's voice echoed through the rusted domes of the slave market on Varnak 9, sharp and callous like a blade scraping steel. Sold. Lot 487 to the Parnithian Baron. Next. One after another, beings were dragged away in chains. Some weeping, others long resigned to fate. The crowd of buyers, mostly hardened alien warlords, merchants, and syndicate lords, bickered and bid with ruthless intent. High above, in a shadowed observation deck, Commander Thorn Valen leaned against the rail, a human, scarred and lean, with the cold eyes of someone who had seen too much war, too much betrayal. He wasn't supposed to be here, but something had brought him. He didn't know what. Then, silence. It was an odd, sudden pause in the rhythmic cruelty of the auction. The auctioneer scowled, motioning toward a dim corner of the stage. Final lot. Unfit. For work or breeding. Leftover trash. A murmur rippled through the crowd. On the platform, the last slave was dragged forward. She stood shakily, arms bound, covered in grime and lacerations. Her skin shimmered faintly, like starlight on obsidian. Her pale lavender eyes burned, not with fear, but with defiance. She was barely clothed in rags. Her once exquisite markings, likely those of a noble caste, were scarred and faded. No one bid. Thorn's gaze locked onto hers. He should have turned. Away. He didn't. Species? Someone shouted. Varelian. Royal bloodline, but genetically defective. Powerless. She's mute. Worthless! The auctioneer sneered. Still no bids. Thorn stepped forward, voice cold. I'll take her. The auctioneer blinked. Sir, you understand, I said. I'll take her. A few in the crowd laughed. Others whispered. A human buying a useless alien? Madness. Pity. Weakness. Thorn tossed a credit chip down. She has a name? He asked. The auctioneer shrugged. No one's cared to ask. They traveled in silence. She sat, knees drawn to her chest, on the cold floor of Thorn's ship, the halberd. He hadn't chained her. He hadn't said much at all. The ship jumped to light warp. They were alone now, truly. Do you understand me? He asked finally. She nodded slowly. I'm Thorn. You? She hesitated, then tapped her collarbone. Twice and drew a faint shape on the floor with her finger. It looked like a crescent moon crossed by a line. He frowned. That's not a name. She stared at him, then tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. Her throat, it seemed, had been damaged long ago. All right, he muttered. We'll figure something out. Can't just call you Hay. He sat opposite her. I didn't buy you to own you, he said. I saw something in your eyes. Fire. You weren't broken. Not yet. She watched him, eyes wide. You can stay, or go when we land. Up to you. She crawled a little closer. Then, with delicate fingers, she touched his chest where a long scar crossed his heart. Her gaze asked the question. War, he said. Her fingers moved again, drawing two lines that intersected. A symbol. Maybe unity? Or fate? I'll call you Sayalari then, Thorn whispered. It means remnant spark in Old Terran. She smiled, just barely. Over the following days, Sayalari proved herself observant, quick to learn. She began to aid him around the ship, repairs, nav routing, even a bit of mock combat training. Though silent, her movements were graceful, sharp, like a dancer taught to kill. It didn't make sense. She was supposed to be powerless, broken. But Thorn knew better. She was hiding something, and one night he saw it. A shadow crept across. The ship's corridor, metal groaned. A Zalok assassin, sent by a warlord Thorn had crossed, appeared in the engine hold. Thorn was nearly too late, but Salari wasn't. She moved like a phantom, leaping, spinning, slashing with a plasma blade. She'd stolen from Thorn's armory days ago. The Zalok never stood a chance. When it was done, her chest heaved. She turned to him, blood and light dripping from her blade, eyes glowing faintly for the first time. Not powerless after all. "You lied," Thorn whispered. She knelt silently, offering him the blade, and Thorn realized she hadn't been hiding fear. She'd been waiting for someone to believe in her without needing power. In the dim light of the halberd's medical bay, Thorn knelt beside her. Sayalari sat on the edge of the table, blood still flecked on her cheek and collarbone, but her posture was calm, serene even. The plasma blade rested across her knees. Like an offering, Thorn had seen killers. Too many, but not like her. "Why hide it?" he asked, running a dermal patch along a graze on her arm. "You're fast, deadly. You could have escaped that cage any time." She didn't answer, only looked at him with unreadable eyes. He leaned back, jaw tight. "You waited for someone stupid enough to take you away from there, didn't you?" Sayalari blinked once. Thorn shook his head, chuckling bitterly. "Well, congratulations. You got one." She rose suddenly, walked over to the bulkhead wall, traced a thin line on it with her finger, then another intersecting line, forming the symbol she'd shown him before. He tilted his head. "That again. What is it?" She turned, placed a hand over her heart, then pointed at him. It hit him slowly. "That is a vow." Her eyes held his. "You're bonded to me?" She nodded. Thorn exhaled. "Great. Now I'm bound to a deadly alien assassin I barely know." But something in her look silenced the sarcasm. There was no servitude in her gaze, no submission, only allegiance, one given freely. He studied her. "All right, Sayalari. If we're bonded, then I need to know the truth. Who trained you?" She hesitated, then slowly knelt and drew on the floor with her finger. 4 symbols. He read them, translating the ancient runes. Varelian Shadow Guard, exiled. His breath caught. That explained everything. The Varelian Shadow Guard were elite protectors of their royal houses, trained in both diplomacy and assassination. But they had long been disbanded, betrayed from within. "You were one of them," he murmured. She nodded once. "And they cast you out." Her fingers moved again. A single line with an X slashed through it. Betrayal. "I was betrayed once too," Thorn muttered. "By my own command, left for dead on Arxos Prime." She tilted. Her head, he pointed to his chest. "That scar? Friendly fire. My unit sold me out to save their own skins." A moment of silence passed. Then she stepped closer, pressed 2 fingers to the scar again. Not a question this time, an understanding. They were 2 broken weapons, and the galaxy had left them behind. Later, the halberd emerged from warp above a fractured moon, the remains of a once thriving trade colony. Now it was a ghost sector, full of smugglers, raiders, and opportunity. Thorn had a contact here, Ryvik, a former merc-turned-fixer who owed him 3 lives and a favor. He needed gear, information, and maybe a new contract. Credits were running thin. As they disembarked, Sayalari followed him closely, cloak draped over her shoulders. Her posture shifted in public, less graceful, more grounded, ready to strike. She was watching everything. The market stank of oil, smoke, and unwashed bodies. Aliens from dozens of species milled about, and a few stared at the strange pair, a hardened human and a silent exotic woman marked with faded royal sigils. Thorn didn't care. Let them stare. They reached Rivek's den. Inside, a security. "Field scanned them before allowing entry. Thorn, you mad bastard." Ryvik boomed, arms wide. "Thought you died on Arxos." "Almost did," Thorn replied. "Need work." Ryvik's gaze shifted to Sayalari. "And what's this? Your trophy?" "She's my partner," Thorn said flatly. Ryvik laughed. "Right. A mute Varelian assassin? Pull the other one." Sayalari stepped forward, and in a blink had her blade out, held an inch from Rivek's throat. His smile vanished. Thorn gave a warning glance. She doesn't like being underestimated. Rivek raised his hands. Message received. You've upgraded since last time. Rivek offered them a job. Simple retrieval. Steal back a data core from a weapons cartel that had double-crossed Rivek's. People. Small strike team. Quiet in, quiet out. Solari shook her head before Thorn could answer. She senses something, Thorn said. Rivek leaned in. It's just one vault. She doesn't think so. Your pet talk to ghosts now? No, Thorn said, rising. She sees through lies. And you're not telling the whole truth. Rivek sighed. Fine, it's not one vault. It's 3. And they've hired mercs. Real ones, not amateurs. Sayalari met Thorn's eyes. She gestured. 4 fingers. He frowned. You think there's more? 4 total? She nodded. Rivek cursed. How the hell does she? Thorn cut him off. We'll do it. But our cut just went up to 60%. Done, Rivek muttered. Just don't let her kill me. No promises, Thorn said, smirking. That night aboard the Halberd, Sayalari stood alone on the observation deck watching the stars. Thorn approached, 2 mugs in hand. I made that Terran tea you seem to like. She took it silently, sipping. Her eyes were distant. Something bothering you? He asked. She hesitated, then pointed to her heart. Drew that symbol again, the one of bond. Then added a new mark beneath it, an open circle. Thorn stared. You're afraid? She nodded. Of what? Me? She shook her head. Of what we're becoming? Another nod. His hand hovered near hers. I'm afraid too. Their fingers brushed. And I don't think that means we stop. She turned to him, eyes shimmering. He took her hand, finally. Whatever you were before, whoever you used to be. You're not broken, Sayalari. She leaned her head against his shoulder, quiet. And for the first time, Thorn let the silence settle between them like warmth instead of weight. The Halberd coasted through the wreckage field of Elronis Theta, its hull lit in brief pulses by silent explosions from abandoned mines. Below them lay the cartel vault complex, massive, subterranean, heavily shielded. A former munitions depot from the Orion War, now gutted and claimed by war profiteers. Thorn adjusted his chest rig, checking each slot of ammunition and energy cells. We're in and out. Grab the data core, map the vault structure, and blow the back wall. We exfil. Through the slag shaft, understood? Sayalari nodded once, already strapping a curved vibroblade to her thigh. Her armor, light and flexible, was repurposed from their earlier salvage jobs. It wasn't regal, but it fit her like it had always been hers. He paused, watching her hands tremble slightly. Nerves. She turned, a spark of defiance in her. Eyes right, he muttered. Stupid question. They landed at the southeast vent hatch under stealth protocols. Thorn moved first, disabling the motion sensors with a flick of his wrist link. Sayalari followed, silent as moonlight. As they descended through the shaft, a familiar tension grew between them, not of fear, but of shared purpose. Each footfall brought them closer to the truth. Because this wasn't just a job, Thorn knew it. Sayalari had seen it in Rivek's hesitation, and when they reached Vault 1, her fears were confirmed. It wasn't just weapons. Inside, suspended in reinforced gel, were Varelian stasis pods, at least 24. Sayalari froze. Thorn approached one, wiping frost from the casing. These aren't weapons. No, came a voice from the dark. Lasers snapped on. Thorn instinctively dove, rolling behind a crate as energy blasts scorched the floor. Sayalari vanished into the shadows. From above, a tall woman stepped down, battle armor glinting black, and crimson, a viper's smile on her lips. Thorn Valen, she purred. Still meddling in affairs far above your pay grade, he cursed. Commander Valith, of course. Valith, the Butcher of Cordan, an elite Varelian turned mercenary warlord. Exiled like Sayalari, but twisted by ambition. Sayalari emerged. Behind her, but Valith spun before she struck, blocking her blade with her own. "You!" Vayleth hissed. "Little flame, I thought you dead." Sailari didn't reply. She lunged. Steel clashed against steel in a fury of motion. Vayleth grinned as she parried. "She betrayed your family," Thorn called, ducking behind cover. "Didn't she?" "She did more than that." Sailari's voice rasped out, raw, broken, but real. Thorn froze, her voice. "You're not mute?" She didn't answer, because in that moment, Vayleth slashed low, drawing a line of blood across Sailari's abdomen. But Sailari responded with a spinning knee that sent Vayleth sprawling. Thorn emerged and opened fire, covering her retreat. They fled down the secondary tunnel, alarms blaring, lights strobing red. They sealed themselves in a collapsed drone bay. Breath ragged. "You can speak," Thorn said at last. Sailari looked away. "It hurts." "But you spoke anyway." She turned to him. "I wanted you to know." "Know what?" "That I remember. I remember my voice. And I remember her." Thorn's voice softened. "Vayleth? She killed my sister, took her body, sold it, to buy passage to the outer rings. Those pods, they're your kin." She nodded. "The last of them." He crouched in front of her. "We're getting them out. All of them." She gripped his forearm tightly. "Then we fight." They returned to the vault corridor with a fury. Thorn planted charges along the rear wall while Sailari hacked the control terminal, releasing the stasis pods one by one. Inside each, men and women with the same markings, the same eyes, her people, her family. When Vayleth returned, flanked by 3 armored guards, Sailari stepped forward to meet her. This time she wasn't hiding. She activated her full cloak, shimmering energy crackling along her limbs. Her eyes burned. "You chose power over your own blood," she rasped. Vayleth sneered. "And you chose weakness, chose a human." "I chose truth," Sailari replied. They clashed again, but now Sailari fought not to survive, but to protect. Every strike was faster, every motion honed by purpose. Thorn covered her flank, taking down 2 guards with precision shots. The last fell to Sailari's blade. Now only Vayleth remained. "You're too late," she spat. "They'll never make it." "Off-world. Then we'll die trying," Thorn said, stepping beside Sailari. For a brief second, Vayleth saw it. Not defiance, devotion. And that, more than blades, unbalanced her. Sailari moved like light incarnate. Her final blow pierced Vayleth's chest, and the older warrior collapsed, a look of stunned silence etched across her face. Thorn triggered the charges. They fled into the slag shaft as the vaults behind them exploded in a cascade of fire and steel. On board the halberd, as the rescued Varelians were tended to in the medbay, Thorn stood beside Sailari at the cockpit. "You lied to me," he said softly. She winced. "I had to. I get it. But no more." She nodded. He took her hand. "What you did, what we did, that wasn't just survival, that was hope." Her eyes shimmered. "Your people have a future now, because of you. And you," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You've got a hell of a voice when you use it." She blushed, then leaned her head against him. Outside, stars stretched on forever. But here, between them, was something brighter. The halberd drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, no beacons, no signals, just silence and space. Inside, the rescued Varelians stirred slowly from stasis. Their bodies were weak, but their eyes, those carried fire. Thorn stood at the comms panel, staring at the blinking alert from the galactic core. "Priority intercept. Subject, Sailari Velzan, fugitive asset. Bounty increased. Human accomplice. Lethal sanction authorized." He closed the panel, jaw clenched. "They know." Sailari entered, her new armor still faintly scorched from the last battle. "The Syndicate?" "No. Worse. The collective tribunal. They're mobilizing ships. Her breath caught. They mean to erase us, not just you. Anyone who helped. Me. This crew. Your people. The reality sank like lead. What they had done, rescuing Varelians from under the nose of warlords, had disrupted the balance of power. The tribunal didn't tolerate disruptions. They corrected them. Violently. Thorn gathered everyone in the main hold. Survivors lined the walls. Young, old, warriors, scholars, all Varelians once enslaved, all watching him now. I won't lie to you, he began. They're coming, and they won't care that you were slaves. To them, you're just evidence that they lost control. Silence. Then Sayalari stepped forward, her voice calm, clear. I will not run again. Thorn turned to her, surprised. She raised her chin. We are Varelian. We do not beg. We endure. Cheers rang out, soft at first, then louder, fierce. We can't win a war against the tribunal, Thorn said carefully. But we don't need to win a war, Sayalari replied. We need a message. One strike, one battle, one truth. He looked around the ship. They had salvaged gear, refitted weapons, and maybe a dozen combat-ready Varelians. Not much, but just maybe. Enough. They jumped to the Oblivion Drift, and abandoned asteroid station once used as a tribunal black site. Now it would be their fortress. Thorn and Sayalari worked side by side, installing turrets, hacking drone clusters, welding shields. Her hands were always steady now. Her silence gone. Sometimes, in stolen moments between preparation and exhaustion, they'd share glances, touches, a kiss behind the fuel stacks. No promises spoken, but everything said. 3 tribunal ships arrived, each one bristled with weapons. Hunter-killers, EMP arrays, boarding pods. Inside the drift, Thorn whispered to Sayalari, "Still time to leave." Her answer was a single word. No. The first barrage struck the shields, flaring blue across the sky. The drift shuddered. Fighters launched. Sayalari took the lead, piloting a retrofitted attack skiff. Her hands glided over the controls like a born warrior. "Varelians, follow me," she called. They surged forward in makeshift fighters, tearing into the tribunal. Forces. Thorn remained on the station, directing auto turrets, triggering trap mines. His mind raced, coordinating strikes, calculating when to sacrifice fuel lines for power surges. The drift screamed with metal and fire. In the black above, Sayalari danced through enemy formations like a tempest. Every turn, every dive, it was as if the ship moved with her, and then a tribunal flagship turned toward the drift. Charging a solar lance cannon, Thorn saw it. He tapped his comm. "Sayalari, you need to pull back. Now." "I see it," she replied. "But if it fires, it'll destroy the station. And if you stay out there, I'm not leaving you." The signal went silent. Seconds passed, then a roar of light. The solar lance fired, but not at the station. Sayalari had redirected her fighter, diving straight toward the cannon port. Her ship slammed into the emitter before it could stabilize the shot. A blast lit the void, white hot. Thorn watched, heart breaking, as her ship vanished in the light. But then, from the debris cloud, an escape pod ejected. He sprinted to the hangar as it docked. The hatch hissed open. She crawled out, burned, bruised, alive. "I told you," she whispered, collapsing into his arms. "I'm not leaving you." He held her, tight, forehead against hers. "Never do that again." She smiled weakly. Liar. The tribunal ships, confused and disorganized after losing their flagship, began to retreat. Their fear was not of weapons, but of what this meant. A Varelian had led a rebellion, with a human, and they had won. Later, as the sun of the drift system began to rise, Thorn and Sayalari stood on the scorched platform of the outer hull. "I didn't think we'd live through that," he said. "We didn't," she replied softly. "We changed." He turned to her, brushing a strand of silver blonde hair from her cheek. What now? She looked up. Now, we show the galaxy what freedom truly means. He smiled. And this time, it wasn't battle or fear that pulled them together. It was love. The drift was silent again, but this time, not from death, from awe. The Virelians, free and unchained, moved like ghosts through its corridors. Some repaired fighters. Others wept beside the names of fallen kin engraved into the hangar walls. And at the heart of it all, Sayalari stood, cloaked in battle-scarred armor, her silver hair streaked with ash. She had not spoken much since the tribunal's retreat, but her silence no longer came from fear. It came from purpose. And Thorn, scarred, bruised and alive, knew something had changed forever. The tribunal didn't forget. A bounty had been placed on Sayalari's head, now triple its previous mark. Thorn's name was on every black list across the mid-rim. They were hunted. But they were no longer alone. Other ships had started reaching out. Not just Virelians, but freed clones, rogue AI, rebel miners, even outcast humans, all whispering the same thing. We heard what you did. We saw her fly. We want in. From a single act of defiance, a movement had begun. They moved their base to the ruins of Zarn Station, an ancient orbital city once left to rot by the megacorps. Now it burned with new life, graffiti, banners, makeshift homes. It became a haven and a war front, the Ash Rebellion, they called it. After the ashes Sayalari rose from, after the fires they lit in the darkness. One night, under the stars of Zarn's broken dome, Thorn found Sayalari alone. She stood on a steel ledge, watching transport ships rise and fall like fireflies in the mist. He came up behind her. "You are avoiding the council." She didn't turn. "They want me to be something I'm not." He tilted his head. "You're already something they never expected." Sayalari finally looked at him. "They call me a queen now, a rebel crown. But I never wanted power. You don't have to wear a crown," he said gently. "Just lead, the way you already do." She smiled faintly. "Do you regret it?" "What?" "Buying me. Back in the pit. You could have walked away. Let someone else take me. Or no one at all." Thorn stepped closer. His voice was rough with memory. "You were never worthless, Sayalari. You were just waiting for someone to see it." They kissed. No fire, no desperation, just truth. And in that stillness, surrounded by stars and scars, something unbreakable was forged. But peace was never promised. A massive tribunal fleet was on the move, one designed to cleanse rebellion worlds. Zarn would be their test. The Ash Rebellion's leaders debated flight. Some wanted to scatter, but Sayalari stood at the heart of the war chamber and said, "No more running." Thorn stood beside her, a hand on his blade. "We hold." And the rebellion, newborn, fragile, furious, agreed. The tribunal's attack came swift, 50 ships, thousands of drones. Orbital cannons designed to scour planets clean. But they hadn't expected unity. They hadn't expected Virelians trained by a human mercenary. They hadn't expected Sayalari to pilot the first flame, a rebuilt war cruiser now bearing her sigil, a chained phoenix bursting free. And they hadn't expected her speech, broadcast across half the system. To all listening across the stars, "We are not slaves. We are not broken. We are not afraid. We are the fire in the dark, and we will burn." For every soul still in chains, the Battle of Zarn lasted 6 hours. 3 rebellion cruisers were destroyed. Countless were injured. Thorn was nearly killed, saving a civilian vessel from a drone swarm. But the first flame broke the tribunal flagship in 2, and Sayalari herself emerged from the wreckage with fire behind her eyes and blood on her hands. The tribunal fell back, for the first time in decades. They lost. After the smoke cleared, Sayalari stood before her people once more, the survivors, The rebels, the dreamers, no longer silent, no longer weak. She removed her armor, stood in the open, scarred and proud. "I was sold once," she said. "Now I buy worlds with hope." They erupted in cheers, and Thorn, standing beside her, whispered, "You're not just a queen, Sayalari. You're legend." She looked at him, her voice quiet. "I never wanted to be legend." He grinned. "Then let's rewrite the ending together." Epilogue. The Ash Rebellion spread across the stars. Slave pits crumbled. Pirate syndicates fell. Even factions of humans began siding with the cause, disgusted by the tribunal's brutality. Children grew up hearing tales of a silver-haired Varelian who defied empires, and the human who believed in her when no one else would. Together, they changed the fate of a galaxy. Together, they lit the fire. The End enjoyed this story. If you'd like to see more tales of forbidden love, battle-scarred heroes, and alien romance in the stars, just say the word.